Okay, now we're going to go to a short video, and we'll come back and talk about X20.
This study was done by Ben Levine out of UT Southwest in Dallas. And it's a really, to me, it's seminal, groundbreaking study that isn't talked about enough. By the way, he's just a phenomenal cardiovascular exercise physiologist. I mean, he trained with the biggest giants out there. And what he did was him and his lab took 50-year-olds that were sedentary. So they're middle age, 50 years old, sedentary but otherwise healthy. So you didn't have any other diseases besides being sedentary, which I think is a disease. But they didn't have any other diseases like cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes or hypertension, right? So they were otherwise healthy, just not active. And he wanted to see if he could put these guys on a pretty long 2-year training protocol. How would that affect the aging of their heart? So as we age, our hearts typically shrink in size and they get stiffer. And that affects not only our cardiorespiratory fitness and our ability to exercise, and I mentioned our cardiorespiratory fitness goes down with age, but it affects our cardiovascular disease risk as well. And so the reason our hearts get stiffer, by the way, does come down to a lot of glucose. So the more glucose stimulation, more glucose is around in your vascular system, it, through a chemical reaction, forms advanced glycation end products. So this glycation essentially stiffens the collagen that surrounds your myocardium and your pericardium. And so you get like this stiffer heart that can't respond to stress well, so you want your heart to be very plastic and malleable and flexible, right? You don't want it to be stiff.
Doesn't sound good.
Just like you don't want your blood vessels to be stiff. What he wanted to do was see if he could change the structure and the trajectory of these aging hearts. And so he put him on a 2-year training program, which involved the Norwegian 4x4, by the way. And when you start someone out that's, not physically active and you want them to do the Norwegian 4x4, when you have them doing their interval, their 4-minute interval, and this speaks to you as well, or anyone, you don't have to necessarily go as hard as you can the whole 4 minutes. You just have to be working hard that interval.
Yeah, you do have to last 4 minutes, right? So
you have to last 4 minutes. And so some people even start off, they're just briskly walking because that's hard for them, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's all tailored to the individual. And so some people get really intimidated where they're like, there's no way I could ever do that. Well, actually, these people did do it. And they started out doing Norwegian 4x4, but they also did a variety of other exercises, including moderate intensity and some more vigorous intensity exercise, as well as some resistance training. And the control group was just this like yoga, flexible training sort of stuff that people were doing. By the end of the 2 years, these people were working out about 5 hours a week. And at some point they were doing 2 Norwegian 4x4s a week, and then they went down to just doing 1 a week. But, over the course of 2 years, they were getting a lot of exercise, about 5 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And essentially, at the end of those 2 years, the structure of their heart, so the stiffness of it and the, shrinking of it was reversed. Mm-hmm. So their hearts grew and they became more flexible. And it was reversed in such a way that it was 20 years less aging. So their hearts looked more like 30-year-olds than 50-year-olds, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think it's also like, well, you think 50, it's too late to start exercising. Well, it's not too late. Mm-hmm. You can be in your 90s and get benefits. I think that's another really important sort of take home with that story is that, you can reverse your aging of your heart by 20 years if you really put in the effort. Five hours a week is about what I do, about 5 or 6 hours a week. It's a lot of work. Mm. I didn't always do that, but I've decided as I started to get into my mid-40s, I'm going to spend less time podcasting and more time exercising because this is my health.
Okay. So in a bit, we're going to, and especially also tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about some of these methods that you can use so you don't have to put in 5 hours per week, but you can get this down to about 10 or 20 minutes per week of exercise. I've been doing this for the past number of months, and my daughter Kelly and I and our research team, we've been working with a scientist at a university that I'm not going to mention because of confidentiality, but he discovered this method when working with Olympic athletes about how to do very short, intense exercise to maximize your efforts and see these very dramatic anti-aging effects in the heart and the cardiovascular system. When I started this, I was using this exercise bike that is specifically designed for this method of training, and I was producing about 650 watts output on this bike, which is good. But then over a very short period of time, I went up to 786 watts of output power, which is equivalent to a competitive athlete. It's not bad for a 62-year-old, right? The other thing I thought that was really important was that 1 horsepower is 750 watts. So now apparently I produce more energy than a horse. Without the big gigantic ass that a horse has, which I'm delighted about. Okay, so how can we, let's go back to the subject we were talking about before. How can we define what aging is? We've looked at the signs and the symptoms of aging, but now let's see if we can put some definition about this. So if we look at the literature, we can go ask AI. One of the theories or the models of aging is that we're programmed to die at a certain age. So this is called the biological clock model, and it simply means that genes change their expression. Certain genes that are on get flipped off, or genes that are flipped off get flipped on over time. Hormones regulate the pace of aging. We know that hormones will change over time in both men and women. The immune system is programmed to decline over a time. That's another theory that's out there. Cells wear out over time. Telomeres shorten. Telomere biology is probably one of the principal areas that researchers look in. So when we're speaking with scientists in the field of anti-aging or age reversal, many of them strictly focus on telomere biology. And then scientists like Dr. Aubrey de Grey, they focus principally on how to eliminate zombie cells from the body. And they're principally looking at creating drugs that do this. All the while, we know that fasting will remove zombie cells from the body, and a nutrient that is found in peppers called fisetin, that will also facilitate removal of zombie cells. So we can use natural means. We don't have to rely on drugs to do this. And then the DNA mutations that occur over time. Again, this is all addressable. If we keep our glutathione levels elevated as one strategy, we can help to protect our cells from mutating genes. So these are many theories on aging. What can we do to simplify this? Aging can be understood from this simple perspective, is that over time, the amount of energy in our cells declines. So we should be looking at strategies to increase energy. The amount of information that makes us who we are declines over time. So this all has to do with, are you doing things on a daily basis to essentially tell your body that you're alive, you're young, and you're youthful? Are you having a clean, healthy diet that contributes to your overall health? Are you exercising to keep those genes expressing in a more youthful state? Are you hydrating the body? Are you using technology like Lifewave to improve the body of information in the cells? So this is important because if we take this complex subject and we distill it down into this simple principle, which is very easy to understand, now we can develop strategies, we can develop technology to turn older cells into younger, healthier cells. So let's look at a few of these things. And I often use this example because it's something that doesn't cost any money and it's good for the planet, meaning we should all live in a state of love and kindness. If we live in a state of love and kindness, this has an immediate benefit on our own health, is that that's been demonstrated to reduce stress. Secondly, this boosts oxytocin. And as you can see in these visuals, oxytocin, doesn't matter if you're 70 or 80 years old, you will get the benefit of reversing the age of the muscle tissue back to a more youthful state. So we talked about the biodome a little bit earlier, and the reason, again, to bring this up is that the principles involved in stopping and reversing human aging is essentially the same as in regeneration. So we have a very exciting future to look forward to, is that not only we can conquer human aging, but also should we get injured in the years to come, that we can use these same strategies so we don't have to have an artificial limb. We can get our own limb back, or we can get a liver back, or a heart, or a kidney, or what have you. It's all possible to regenerate. So now we look at the very foundation of how it is that we are able to function. And we look at the nucleus of the cell. And what we find is that if you take cells and you put them in an environment that's completely dark and use a photomultiplier tube, you will see that there are highly coherent pulses of light coming out of the cells. And these are not random emission of light, but rather each wavelength of light is triggering a specific biochemical reaction. So as Becker found in the 60s, it's the energy systems in the body that control the biochemistry. And so this is very important for us to understand, because it means that if we have a healthy diet and we get all of the raw materials that we need to maintain our health, we can use technology, we can use light in its various manifestations to improve our health in some very powerful ways. So light is the main orchestration by which everything else happens in the body. So we'll go back to our testosterone examples here, because we're in California and I know some men want to elevate their testosterone. Instead of having to get an injection of testosterone, get it exogenously, we can simply go out in the sun, take our shirts off, and expose the androgen receptors in our trapezius muscles to ultraviolet light, and that will increase testosterone production, in addition to vitamin D. So ladies, if you ever wondered why men are exceptionally horny in the summer, you have to look no further at a beach where men don't have any shirts on, and this is the explanation. It's not an excuse, but it's the explanation. Okay. So the question becomes, how can we use light in a way to stop and reverse human aging? So we have been doing these experiments now for well over 10 years. And the place this started was to take an ordinary metal like tin. Now we've done this with aluminum, we've done this with copper and bismuth, a variety of other metals, but I'm just going to use tin as an example. And if we take tin and we expose it to oxygen, this could be pure oxygen, or even just there's enough oxygen in the ambient air, and we expose it to heat, we get a normal tin oxide. There's nothing unusual about that. However, if we were to use electromagnetic energy, and we were to introduce the electromagnetic energy during this process while the oxygen is binding to the metal, what we found is that we can create an entirely new species of metal oxide that never existed before. And this is something that I received a number of patents on. So this reminds me of Steve Jobs. You know one thing I didn't like about Steve Jobs? This is kind of like from a Bill Burr joke, so I'm going to borrow it. But what I didn't like about Steve Jobs is he always went out on stage by himself and took credit for everything, right? Walked out there in a t-shirt, no socks, like it was no biggie, right? And he never gave credit to his engineers. Well, we have one of our engineers today who has been our chief engineer at our laboratory. I just want to recognize him for a moment, Mr. George Sanchez. Give him a nice round of applause. So George has been with me now for more than 15 years. I think we're going on 17 years together. And I come up with all these crazy ideas, and George is the best computer programmer, CAD designer that you will ever find. So I come in and say, hey, George, you know, here is a scratch of an invention. He looks at it and says, yeah, I think I can design that. He'll design it in the computer. We print a model on a 3D printer. We take it to the machine shop that we have, and now all of a sudden we have a working invention. So this came as a result of a collaboration between Big George and I. So what we found, and here's the really interesting part. So keep in mind, we're taking a metal and we're taking oxygen and we're bringing them together to form something that never existed before. And we're doing that by embedding light, or we're using electromagnetism to change the angle at which the metal and the oxygen bind to one another. And when we change the frequency or the wavelength of light, the color of the metal changes. So we can produce something that looks like gold, red, orange, blues, purples, all by using energy. And then we send these out to labs, and what we find is that these materials never existed before, and they have some really interesting applications. So why is this important? Why am I sharing this with you? It's because hydrogen has a metallic state. And if we think of hydrogen as a metal, and we think about it with respect to these experiments, it means if we took hydrogen and we took oxygen, and during their formation, we used electromagnetism or light, we might be able to create an entirely new species of water that never existed before. So this was the genesis, this was the beginning of X20. And those initial laboratory experiments were incredibly rewarding, but it has taken us a long time to take that from a laboratory experiment to equipment that we could actually put into something we could manufacture. And there's been a lot of stumbling blocks along the way. But fortunately, we've gotten there now. So that's what X20 is all about. So one of the questions is, if we have a new technology now for creating a new type of water that never existed before, what wavelengths of light should we use and why? Well, this is where we look to nature. So if we can understand how certain species like lobster are defying the aging process, And we know that it's light that all living systems are using for communication. That means if we can understand this biological code, or as we call it, the code of creation, if we could understand this biological code, that means we can put those wavelengths of light that are responsible for a species' biological immortality, we can put that into water. And if we put that into water and human beings can consume it, that means the water goes everywhere throughout the body. So now we have a way of delivering light throughout the entire body. So we look at spectrophotometry data and studies that have been done on lobster, and we see that one of the critical wavelengths of light is 550 nanometers. We see there's another interesting peak of light between 700 and 710 nanometers. And we also know that from stem cell experiments that we've done, that 630 nanometer light is critical for energy production and mobilization of stem cells. So 550, 710, 630. That's the code that lobsters are using. Last night, I had the opportunity to share with you the code that is found in the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. We see the numbers 999, 888, 777. And we see the ratios of one number to another. These are the same ratios. So when God was creating all things, he put his signature in light into species that are immortal as a sign of his existence. So this is normal distilled water that we freeze, and we put this in a beaker, and you can see there's nothing unusual about it. It's just normal ice. However, when we take water from X20, water that is infused with light, it adopts a very specific structure. It becomes highly coherent. And as a matter of fact, the water implodes and releases energy. So you can see that there is these highly organized crystal threads that implode like a vortex. We even see a vortex funnel form inside of this ice. It's the same formation we see in all living systems. So this is what this process looks like over time. We take distilled water, it doesn't matter what type of water it is, but you get slightly different effects depending on the type of water. But we use distilled water because it's a control. But you can see we process this now for 2.5 hours, 3.25 hours, and you can see the water is imploding and forming this beautiful egg-shaped vortex funnel in the center, and the ice threads are moving closer. Interestingly, the longer that we process the water becomes so coherent that it becomes crystal clear like glass. So let's show a quick video of what this looks like. So we see the water, as it freezes, forms these crystal threads. This is evidence that these are highly coherent structures, not random oscillations, chaotic oscillations as you would find in normal ice. And then we get this vortex bubble that forms in the center. So this is a pattern that we see in nature around all living systems, and we've duplicated that in the water that you now can drink. Okay. All right, let's continue on. Okay, so what happens when we drink this water? Simply, the studies that we have now on X20 show that when you drink this water, within the first 15 seconds, there's a measurable increase in bioelectrical activity of the body. Many people will experience this as an improvement in circulations. Those of you that have tried it, you know that you can feel this rush of energy that goes up into your head. You experience improvements in cognition, in awareness. Some people experience a buzzing effect in the frontal lobes and around the eyes. So we get a very pronounced bioelectrical effect within seconds of drinking the water. That's measurable. 100%. I think it's really cool. 100% of the people that drink this have a measurable change. So we have an incredible product to market. When we do urine testing, amongst urine testing, blood tests, we see measurable changes in the metabolism. And a pattern begins to form when we look at which amino acids specifically are being metabolized. So glycine, which of course is part of copper peptide, part of glutathione, increases in metabolism from consuming X2O. Valine, one of the branch chain amino acids necessary for muscle protein synthesis, that increases when consuming X2O. Proline, which is, as we know, foundational for collagen production, and collagen production is foundational for longevity, increases when we consume X2O. And then leucine, of course, which activates mTOR for muscle protein synthesis. Those of you that are athletes will notice that when you consume X2O, as long as you're taking enough protein and getting enough exercise, you'll see you'll build muscle faster with X2O. And then importantly, because we're talking about longevity, we see that X2O activates the KP pathway, which turns on production of NAD, which again is a key molecule in anti-aging and age reversal. Interestingly, in vitro work that we've done with X2O has shown an increased production of NAD in the fibroblasts, which is what makes collagen. Users report, of course, improved energy, what someone experienced with X2O, improvements in energy, which lasts 3 to 5 hours, improvements in cognition, improvements in eyesight. These aren't necessarily all things that we're going to be making claims about, because we're not going to make medical claims, but general improvements in overall health and wellness, which lasts for many hours. So life is about energy and information. X2O infuses water with light that stimulates energy production throughout the body. And this is the first time there's been a technology available where we can put light inside the body and have it go everywhere needed. So we're in the perfect place to market this product and help millions of people around the world. Okay, now with that, I'd like to invite up to the stage a man with deep experience in marketing and brand strategy, and we're very lucky to have him here at Lifewave. He's helped to define, communicate, and activate brands from startups to Fortune 500 companies. He has helped lead the team at Lifewave, which got us a DSN Bravo Award. So please welcome to the stage Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Mr. Wayne Moorhead.
Amazing information. I'm so excited. Thank you. I'm so excited to learn more. This right here, I think, represents one of my favorite parts of my job, the coolest thing that I get to do. And that is be at events like this or on the monthly webinar with you, where I get to learn more about Lifewave's incredible products directly from you. And I'm especially excited about today because we get to learn about the latest innovations and the latest products that you're launching. So I was back there listening intently about all the incredible X2O information, and I'd love to go a little bit deeper and have us learn more about this category creating product.
Let's do it.
So this product was years in development. And I'm curious, what was the inspiration or the catalyst that really drove you to bring this to market?
Yeah, so the first part about this is that our laboratory wants to stop and reverse human aging. And we have looked at a whole variety of different species. We've looked at planaria, hydractinia. We looked at a species of ant that has a very interesting pattern of aging that human beings can benefit from, of course, lobsters. And at first, this was all about giving people a tool so as they age, they can get younger in the process. And the idea is that the impact that this could have on society in a very practical way is that we could, if enough people implemented these strategies, we can decrease healthcare costs, we can keep more people in the workforce, keep them productive into later in their lives, give people more meaning to their life, and also use this as a driver to maybe change how people think about healthcare. If people can drink water, something as simple as water, and it's infused with light, maybe people start thinking about, well, maybe I'm a being of light, and maybe we can have a little bit more peace in the world. We shouldn't be trying to harm others. We should be trying to help others. So that was some of the initial thinking.
I love that because it's always so inspiring to hear the origin stories of these products and innovations. And every time I ask you, it always starts with the impact. It always starts with helping people live better, live longer. And that's one of the inspiring reasons that we all love working for you so much. So I'm curious, you've leveraged light in so many interesting ways and so many interesting products. Why is water such a powerful delivery system for light?
So when we were doing our experiments on metals, some of the things that, for example, we developed a completely new and revolutionary solar cell, as an example, by creating a new type of metal that well, I can't get into it.
I know,
but
the
let's
words
just say,
would go over my head. It's fine, I totally understand.
Let's just say we found a better way to convert light over into electricity. I just leave it at that. And so the thinking was, if we can embed wavelengths of light into metals, how can we apply this knowledge for human health? Because upregulating energy in the cell is so foundational to age reversal. So the thinking was, water goes everywhere in the body. It would be the ideal carrier of light if we could figure out a way to create a new structure for water to deliver that light. So it became very obvious early on that water would be the ideal carrier for light. The question is, how do you actually do that? So that's what that.
It's amazing. Well, thank you for bringing water to light, and the first product to ever do so. Thank you. So bringing an entirely new innovation to the world that no one has ever seen before, no one has ever experienced before, nor has anyone ever manufactured before, has to be terribly complex and daunting. I can't even imagine what that must be like. But what I've learned from you is the process is always about innovating and iterating, and really the magic happens in the perseverance. That's where it kind of all comes together. But can you share any challenges that kind of stick out in bringing this incredible product to market?
There have been lots of challenges.
Okay. I'm sure. I know.
Lots of challenges. Actually, I think it's good to share some of this for a variety of reasons. We're all going to face challenges in our life, whether or not they be financial challenges, challenges with our health, challenges in relationships. And these are really opportunities to grow as a human being. And they're also opportunities to turn to God and ask for help and build our relationship with the Lord. And so when we're faced with a challenge in life, we should first move to acceptance and embrace it and then look within and look towards help from others about how we can overcome this challenge and become better as a result. So from the very beginning of Lifewave, when I started the company, perhaps 80% of the people that I met told me that this company would never succeed. We had times in the very early days of the company, 2005, 2006, where we nearly went out of business. But through patience, persistence, a lot of prayer, a lot of great people to work with, we were able to become stronger as a result. So this is to say that when you're encountering your challenges in your life, it's not something that you have to be afraid of. It's something that you can embrace and become stronger when you come out the back end. And with X20, as it turns out, when you're trying to create a technology that never existed before, it's very difficult to work with engineers that learn things in textbooks, and now you're introducing a new data set that's outside of their knowledge or experience, and have them be able to understand some of the challenges that will occur. So we've had complications in the design. One really good example, problem that George and I went through going through this war was we found, Kelly and I found that the distance that the lights need to be from one another is very precise. It's like tuning a musical instrument. And we had our drawings of X20. We passed those along to industrial design engineers to turn this into a system. We get back the prototype and it didn't work. And we went through all these different types of tests. Is it the filtration? Is it the water we're using? What's going on? So we opened up the system and we found that the engineers had decided to change the distance of the light panels to make all the components fit inside the machine. And they did that so they could reduce the size of the machine. And it's like, no, this is the drawing we gave you. This is what we need to have made. So it's been a lot of challenges like that, and that's held up our launch of X20 for a year, but I'm really happy to say that we've overcome all of these challenges now, and we'll be back on track with X20.
Well, I know that we are all grateful that you persevered and pushed through and innovated and iterated to bring X20 to market, and all those other times that you just mentioned with Lifewave, or none of us would be here today. So thank you for all that you do, David.
Well, we had, I had a number of people contact me who were suffering from a number of health conditions that we can't mention, and they got an early version of X20. And they got remarkable results with the product. And I want to tell our community how much I appreciate hearing the testimonials and these experiences. And in the case of something like X20, because there were so many challenges that were incredibly frustrating, knowing that even just a few people had had these life-changing experiences, the attitude about this was, this can't fail. I really believe, because the challenges we've had over the past year have been so unusual, that this has been an instance where the forces of darkness push against our company and want to prevent this technology from coming out because it's going to help so many people. Yeah. So that makes me want to push even harder.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I've been fortunate to read some of those stories and hear some of the testimonials, and I cannot wait till this product gets around the world. and I know that it's right around the corner. But I know one of the questions we might get with something that is so innovative that really has created its own category, it may mistakenly get associated with another, water product or filter on the market. Can you explain a little bit how this is an entirely different product?
Yeah, so we had a phenomenal team, phenomenal marketing team. I want to give a shout out to Laura Kelly, who's
Laura.
been running our new product development. Laura is absolutely amazing. And I also want to give a shout out to Jules Rudick, who has been taking this and converting it over to manufacturing. And I don't want to leave anybody out. We have a phenomenal team. So one of the decisions we made early on was that because it was going to be expensive to make the basic technology, that people should be able to put any type of water into the machine and then use it. So that means we needed to have two separate stages of filtration. So the first stage takes out all of the harmful chemicals, the forever chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, chlorine, and then the second stage also removes additional contaminants and then infuses the water with hydrogen. And we did that because, of course, we're combining hydrogen and oxygen into this new species of water. So filtration is a part of the machine, but it is not the functional part of how this is creating this entirely unique species of water. So there is no other system on the market like this.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we have, in fact, received patents on
yes,
X20, so we won't have any competitors either.
So I know from watching you, a critical part of your innovation process is the validation, is the clinical studies, and you talked about a few of them and the incredible speed that benefits are being seen, the physiological effects. I'm curious, were you surprised even by those results, or is that exactly what you expected?
We've never performed clinical studies on any of our products where we had 100% of the people respond. Even with Icewave, we got to 96% of people responding with pain relief, but never in any of our products was 100%. And the reason is pretty clear, because many people are dehydrated, they don't have enough electrolytes, so we're always going to get a percentage of people. But as products go, the patches are extraordinary because we consistently see more than 80% of people respond. But with X20, it's been 100%, and you would, I think, expect to see the reaction be very rapid, but it's another thing entirely when you're sitting in the lab and you actually see the needles on the machine changing within 15 seconds. That's like, okay, this works really well.
Yeah. That's an understatement, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you showed, I love watching the video of the ice being frozen, or the water being frozen into ice. Can you speak a little bit more about what's happening at the molecular level?
Yeah, so one way to think about this is you have in water, of course, it's hydrogen and oxygen, and you have these bonds. And what we're taught in school is that the bond angle of water is fixed, but that's really not the case. The bond angle can be manipulated under the right conditions, and when you do so, the properties of water change. Also, some people mistakenly think that all water is more or less the same, and then again, that's not the case. Water can take on many different properties under the right conditions. So for example, if you took a specific mineral and only added 4 or 5 parts per million of that mineral, the water structure changes, whereas if you have 10 or 20 parts per million, you don't see this effect. So this tells us a lot about the nature of water. So in this particular case with X20, what we're doing is using very specific wavelengths of light, and this requires 6 different wavelengths of light to form this phenomena, where we create coherent resonant domains between the hydrogen and oxygen bonds. So the water in effect traps the light in resonance. The photons bounce back and forth between the hydrogen and oxygen bonds. They get trapped and they stay there for a period of time. This is a highly controversial theory amongst the community of people that study water, which most people don't think this is a legitimate phenomena. But you have to look no further than our clinical studies to show that, in fact, when people drink this water, there are measurable changes bioelectrically, biochemically measurable in the urine and the blood. So we have very clearly been able to embed light into water and demonstrate that this has a very powerful physiological effect within minutes of consuming.
Yeah, it's incredible. So seeing the kind of immediate physiological responses, can you talk a little bit more about the long-term health benefits of consuming this on a daily basis?
Well, we're still studying this. So the studies that we've done on X20 have principally been with the immediate effects because we haven't had the machines available to do the long-term studies. But we've had people in a test group that have been using the water consistently, and many of the things they experience we can't talk about because they would be medical claims. Some of the daily benefits that people have, though, the most pronounced benefit, I would say, that's observable is a dramatic improvement in energy. We often caution people not to drink X20 after 3 p.m. because they may be staying awake till 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I know people here that just laughed in our test group, they found out the hard way.
I think they tried it, yeah.
Yeah. Improvements in cognition, improvements in awareness, better absorption of nutrition, which is why we recommend putting Celergize into X20. So there's numerous general wellness benefits to consuming X20.
It's incredible.
Numerous.
Yeah, I can't wait till we hear even more stories, all these incredible stories that we're already hearing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned not consuming it after 3 o'clock. Can you share a little bit more about the proper way to consume it, fasted, unfasted, what time of day? When is the ideal time?
Well, what we've done in our studies is have people consume the water more or less first thing in the morning. So I would encourage people to experiment a little bit, try it as a pre-workout, try it as after working out in the morning. But any time within the morning is fine, or even around midday. Our studies have been done with people consuming 1 glass of water per day, but we have some highly energetic brand partners and leaders that have wanted to consume 2, 3, 4 glasses a day. So those effects clinically are not well defined yet. We do want to be exploring this. We're going to be doing some research with Dr. Jensen on looking at telomere length, looking at gene expression, and seeing over a 6 to 9 month period of time what influence does this have on longevity.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So another one of your innovation philosophies that I found so inspiring is this concept of synergy, where so many other companies develop a portfolio of disparate products. You intentionally design them to work together, to optimize, to accelerate the benefits of one another. Can you share a little bit more about why this is such a powerful product design philosophy?
So the product that everyone should start with is X39.
I know that voice. I know that voice.
Of course, until I invent another patch.
Yeah, that's right.
Which may or may not exist. But we start with X39. That is the perfect way to introduce people to Lifewave. Celergize would be incredibly important because it provides all of the nutrition. We're talking about the morning formula now. Provides all the nutrition that people need to complement all of our Lifewave patches, including X39. And then, of course, at some point, introducing X20. And the reason why these are so synergistic is that the body requires water to function. And when we see people not responding to the patches, it's almost always because of dehydration. So why not have a water that penetrates the cell, improves hydration, improves all these other benefits, works with light, works in synergy with the patches, and then Cellergize will provide those nutrients to make all of this possible. So they are in fact the perfect combination for people to achieve the results they want.
Absolutely. So we're out of time, but final question. What does the introduction of X20 mean for the future of Lifewave and for the future of human potential?
You know, for this first 20 years, just speaking from a business perspective, sure. For the first 20 years, we've been able to build the business with our patch technology, and there is still a certain segment of the population that has a problem understanding how something that's non-transdermal could have such powerful effects on the human body. And now we're really crossing over into new territory where it's very easy to understand how consuming something could have a health benefit, and X20 is incredibly powerful. So I think what's going to happen is when we market X20, it's going to open Lifewave to an audience that we weren't able to capture before, and then they're going to be more open to saying, well, if this light infused water changed my health, maybe I should try X39 since that's working with light also. So I think X20 will support the launch of our other products as well.
Well, David, thank you for creating this incredible product, for bringing your vision to life, and for keeping Lifewave at the forefront of human health and wellness. So appreciate your time.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Inspired by nature, brought